Top 10 gemstones that looked valuable, but weren't. They were displayed like diamonds, mounted in royal crowns, passed down as treasured heirlooms, or worshipped as sacred objects in ancient rites. All because they looked expensive. For centuries, gemstones have held more than just material value. They've symbolized wealth, power, love, even divinity. A ring was handed down across 3 generations. A pendant was sold at auction as an antique relic, and a softly glowing stone was marketed as rare or blessed. They all relied on the same assumption. If it sparkles like a precious gem, it must be one. But the truth often lies beneath the surface. In this episode, we uncover 10 stones that misled collectors, fooled entire empires, and are still being sold, sometimes at a premium, to this day. Some were synthetic, some were misidentified, and some were never gemstones at all. These are the top 10 gemstones that look valuable, but weren't. Don't forget to press and hold that like button, leave a comment, and hit subscribe before we begin. Ranked 10th, Goshenite. When clarity becomes a trap. In the world of gemstones, color is everything. A hint of green and emerald can command thousands of dollars. A flash of rainbow and opal can rewrite the destiny of a stone. And sometimes, the complete absence of color becomes the most deceptive trait of all. Goshenite, the colorless variety of beryl, is a quiet master of illusion. To a gemologist, there's nothing hidden in its structure. It is chemically pure beryl, free from the iron and chromium atoms that give emeralds and aquamarines their celebrated colors. Goshenite is colorless because it is clean. And ironically, it is this purity that allowed it to carry the illusion of value for centuries. From the late 18th to early 20th century, Goshenite was widely used in European jewelry, but rarely under its proper name. In an age before electron microscopes, spectroscopy, or diamond grading reports, gemstones were judged by the naked eye, instinct, and trust. And under the warm glow of candles and gaslight, a well-cut Goshenite could pass as a diamond, effortlessly. Entire heirlooms were passed down through generations. Engagement rings, brooches, necklaces, all believed to contain genuine diamonds. Modern appraisal techniques would later reveal the truth. Brilliant, colorless, flawless, but ultimately just beryl. Today, Goshenite holds almost no place in the commercial gemstone market. While diamonds can fetch $3,000 to $15,000 per carat, Goshenite often trades at less than $20 per carat, even when skillfully cut. Collectors rarely seek it. Jewelers often ignore it. Even spiritual communities often drawn to rare minerals leave Goshenite untouched. And yet, Goshenite is not a fake. It is not lab-created, not dyed, not enhanced. It is a natural mineral with a complete crystal structure and geological authenticity. It holds more mineralogical integrity than many synthetic or treated stones currently flooding the market. That makes Goshenite dangerous, not because it deceives, but because it allows others to deceive themselves. It never pretended to be a diamond. It simply stood still and allowed human desire to fill in the gaps. It became valuable, not by merit, but by assumption. Goshenite reminds us that clarity alone is not worth it in a world obsessed with clarity. And in the list of gemstones that looked valuable but weren't, Goshenite is not a fraud. It is a mirror. In that mirror, we see reflected our hunger for perfection and our willingness to mistake beauty for truth. Ranked 9th, Goldstone, the glittering illusion. At first glance, Goldstone appears enchanting. Tiny metallic flecks suspended in a glowing glassy matrix give it the shimmer of a star field frozen in stone. For many buyers, especially those unfamiliar with gemological classifications, this dazzling appearance is enough to mistake it for a naturally occurring gemstone. In reality, goldstone is neither a mineral nor a product of geological formation. It is a synthetic material, carefully manufactured glass infused with crystallized copper or other metallic particles. The origins of goldstone are often linked to 17th century Venice, where glassmakers from the Murano region are believed to have accidentally created the effect while experimenting with molten copper in glass furnaces. The resulting material was visually appealing, durable, and easy to shape, ideal for decorative objects and jewelry. Over time, blue, green, and purple variations were developed by adding cobalt, chromium, or manganese. None of these naturally occur in this form. What makes goldstone particularly misleading is not its composition, but its presentation. In specific markets, especially in tourist destinations, New Age shops, and online metaphysical retailers, goldstone is frequently mislabeled or ambiguously marketed as sunstone, starstone, or simply as a rare cosmic gem. These names mimic mineral names or intentionally blur the line between scientific terminology and fantasy branding. Under gemological examination, goldstone is easily distinguished from any natural gemstone. It lacks internal crystal structure, displays isotropic behavior under polarized light, and has a refractive index consistent with commercial glass. Reputable gem labs do not issue grading certificates for goldstone, as it does not qualify as a gemstone under any recognized mineral classification system. Despite its synthetic origin, goldstone remains popular in entry-level jewelry and ornamental carvings. It is inexpensive to produce, available in bulk, and easy to polish. Its value is entirely aesthetic, driven by surface-level beauty and mass-market appeal, not by rarity, chemical uniqueness, or investment-grade properties. Goldstone has no history of geological misidentification. No royal family ever mistook it for a natural gem. What makes it deceptive is more subtle: its ability to sell the illusion of value. It does not pretend to be what it isn't, until a label or price tag encourages that illusion. Ranked 8th, Andara Crystals, alien glass or clever hoax. Across online marketplaces and alternative wellness communities, Andara Crystals have been promoted as mystical, high-vibrational stones, allegedly discovered in Northern California and linked to ancient civilizations or even extraterrestrial origins. Some sellers describe them as monatomic healing crystals, claiming connections to lost Lemurian technology or interdimensional energy fields. A price tag in the thousands often follows despite no formal recognition of these materials within the scientific or gemological community. Visually, Andara crystals are undeniably striking. They come in bright blues, greens, ambers, and purples, often with glassy transparency and jagged edges. However, under proper analysis, including polarizing microscopy, refractometry, and infrared spectroscopy, the material is slag glass, an industrial byproduct created during metal smelting or glass manufacturing. It lacks the crystalline lattice required to qualify as a mineral and does not occur in any naturally documented geologic formation. No credible geological survey, including those conducted by the U.S. Geological Survey, USGS, has confirmed the existence of a naturally occurring deposit of Andara or any comparable material in the region where it is claimed to originate. Independent mineralogists who have analyzed samples from exclusive mining sites in California report that they are compositionally identical to recycled industrial glass in landfills or old foundry waste sites. Despite these facts, the Andara phenomenon has thrived, not through evidence, but through belief. Sellers typically do not offer gemological certification from institutions like GIA, IGI, or AGL. Instead, the perceived value of these pieces is built on personal testimonials, metaphysical narratives, and selective storytelling, factors that can be compelling to buyers unfamiliar with gemology or mineral classification. From a mineralogical standpoint, Andara is not a gemstone. From a commercial perspective, it is not traded on any legitimate gem market or auction house. And from an investment standpoint, it carries no established resale value, grading scale, or provenance. What it does have is branding, the ability to look captivating, sound mysterious, and sell for high prices to those unaware of its true origin. This material is not rare, it is not crystalline, and it is not natural. The only thing that makes Andara remarkable is how convincingly it has been framed as something it's not. Ranked 7th, Blue Spinel, the royal mistake. Among all misclassifications in the history of gemology, few rival the longevity and scale of the confusion surrounding the so-called Black Prince's Ruby, a prominent red stone mounted at the center of the British imperial state crown. For over 6 centuries, this gem was believed to be one of the largest natural rubies, passed from monarch to monarch and worn during coronations as a symbol of sovereign authority. The truth, however, remained undiscovered until the development of crystallography and mineral spectroscopy in the 20th century. Although initial doubts about the stone's identity emerged as early as 1783, when French mineralogist Jean-Baptiste Romé de Lille first recognized Spinel as a distinct species, it wasn't until much later that definitive testing confirmed the stone was not ruby, aluminum oxide, but Spinel, magnesium aluminum oxide. The structural distinction is fundamental. Ruby crystallizes in the trigonal system, whereas Spinel forms in the isometric system, leading to differing optical and physical properties under magnification. Spinel can naturally occur in vibrant shades of red, with refractive indices and luster closely mimicking ruby, especially to the unaided eye. However, market valuation places Spinel considerably below ruby in price per carat. While fine red Spinel can fetch several $1,000s per carat at reputable auction houses, high-quality Burmese ruby, particularly untreated stones, can command prices exceeding $100,000 per carat. The disparity lies in rarity, historical demand, and established trade recognition. The Spinel mounted in the crown weighs approximately 170 carats and is cut in cabochon, a style commonly used in the medieval period to preserve mass. Scholars suggest it likely originated from the Badakhshan mines in present-day Afghanistan, one of the few ancient sources capable of producing large, gem-quality red Spinel before modern mechanized mining. Its journey through European courts, first recorded in 1367 as a gift to Edward of Woodstock, known as the Black Prince, further elevated its status despite misidentification. Today, the stone remains in its original setting, not as a ruby, but as a historical artifact. Its legacy serves as a case study in the evolution of gemological science and the limitations of visual assessment in pre-modern mineral identification. It is neither a fake nor a forgery, but rather a relic of a time when mineral classification depended solely on observation and tradition. The Black Prince's ruby is no longer misnamed in gemological records. Still, its story continues to illustrate how even the most esteemed treasures can rest on centuries of misconception, not out of deceit, but due to scientific progress's slow, deliberate nature. Ranked 6th, Cat's Eye Quartz, the optical illusion that didn't pay off. The gemstone known as Cat's Eye Quartz draws immediate attention for a single reason: its shifting, slit-like reflection across the surface, an optical effect known as chatoyancy. For centuries, this silky band of light, reminiscent of a feline's gaze, elevated a stone's perceived value, regardless of its composition. And therein lies the problem. Cat's Eye Quartz is a variety of macrocrystalline quartz that contains fine parallel inclusions, typically of asbestos-like minerals such as crocodylite, that reflect light in a concentrated line. In well-polished cabochons, this can produce a dramatic, moving band of light that superficially resembles the optical quality found in high-end stones like chrysoberyl cat's eye, also known as cymophane. This gem does command significant market value, but Cat's Eye Quartz is ordinary, inexpensive, and geologically unremarkable, unlike cymophane. It lacks the density, refractive index, and rarity of the more valuable varieties it visually imitates. Despite this, it has long been sold in jewelry under the ambiguous label Cat's Eye, a term with commercial weight but no scientific specificity. Without clarification, buyers often assume they're acquiring a premium material, a misconception that benefits sellers, not collectors. The confusion isn't rare, it's engineered. Cat's Eye Quartz is frequently marketed in lower-end markets to emphasize mystique and optical beauty while omitting clarity about its origin and category. This practice is widespread in metaphysical shops and tourist destinations, where labeling laws are minimal and buyer expertise is assumed to be low. From a gemological perspective, the material is stable, natural, and attractive in the right light. But within the scope of rarity, investment, and mineralogical merit, it offers very little substance behind the surface. What elevates its perceived worth is not its intrinsic nature, but the power of a visual effect, an effect that, in this case, proved more profitable than the stone itself. In the broader landscape of gem history, cat's eye quartz remains a striking example of how optics can override value. A stone remembered not for what it is, but for what people briefly thought it might be. Ranked fifth, Moissanite, too good to be a diamond. The original chemical composition of moissanite was determined in 1893 by French scientist Henri Moissan, who analyzed a meteorite that had fallen in Canyon Diablo, Arizona. The material he discovered was not a diamond, as he had initially assumed, but a toxic mineral containing silicon carbide, later named moissanite in his honor. In nature, this mineral is rarely extensive or transparent enough to be used as a gemstone. Almost all moissanite on the market today is synthetic in the laboratory. In aesthetic terms, moissanite has a higher refractive index than diamond, 2.65 to 2.69 compared to 2.42, producing a more intense explosive effect when exposed to artificial light. On the Mohs scale of hardness, it scores 9.25, second only to diamond, allowing it to be used in jewelry resistant to tactile and tactile wear. Its appearance is so similar that in some standard tests, even jewelers without specialized equipment have difficulty distinguishing between moissanite and diamond. However, the two materials are not considered equivalent in the professional gem industry. Moissanite is phenomenally cheaper than natural diamonds or even CVD or HPHT synthetic diamonds. A high-quality 1-carat moissanite typically ranges from $300 to $600, while a natural diamond of the same size and color grade can cost over $5,000, depending on the source and certification. Additionally, moissanite has a more substantial color dispersion, creating a reflected light that is sometimes considered too vivid or purple, something many jewelry connoisseurs consider unnatural. No gemological watchdog organization classifies moissanite as a traditional or long-term investment gemstone. The Gemological Institute of America, GIA, and AGS do not issue commercial certificates for moissanite. However, retailers continue to offer it as a viable alternative in the consumer market, especially for buyers who value budget and look. Moissanite is not a fake. It is not a diamond imitation or imitation by any legal definition. However, it is not in the same category as diamonds in terms of geology, trade, and the investment market. Despite its many physical and aesthetic advantages, moissanite should be valued on its own merits, a synthetic material that is durable, beautiful, and affordable, but not precious. Ranked fourth, amber imitations, not so ancient after all. Authentic amber is a fossilized tree resin that has endured tens of millions of years of chemical transformation, pressure, and oxidation beneath sediment. The oldest deposits, such as those in the Baltic region, date back over 40 million years and often contain perfectly preserved organic inclusions, insects, plant matter, and even air bubbles from prehistoric atmospheres. For scientists, these samples hold real paleontological value. For collectors, they command a premium, but the amber market has long been saturated with convincing fakes. Some are cast in modern plastic, others are made from copal, a younger, semi-hardened resin without full fossilization. Copal can form in less than 1,000 years, sometimes even in decades, and it's chemically unstable. When exposed to solvents or moderate heat, it softens, melts, or emits a sticky pine-like odor. Behaviors that genuine amber does not exhibit. What makes these imitations deceptive is not just their appearance, but their frequent inclusion of staged organic matter. Insects and plant fragments, often modern, sometimes artificially aged, are embedded within the resin to create the illusion of age and authenticity. These pieces are then marketed as rare prehistoric fossils and, in some cases, sold at prices comparable to or exceeding those of verified amber. The problem is widespread. In markets across Southeast Asia, Central America, and parts of Eastern Europe, faked amber is sold openly, often indistinguishable to the untrained eye. Even seasoned collectors have been misled. Scientific verification typically requires spectroscopic analysis or destructive testing. Neither is feasible for casual buyers or tourists. No central gemological laboratory certifies plastic or copal as gemstone-grade material. While natural amber is recognized and evaluated based on clarity, age, origin, and inclusion type, its imitators lack the stability, longevity, and rarity that define actual gem value. Yet the commercial success of these fakes continues, driven by romanticized storytelling and aggressive resale tactics. Plastic and copal are not dangerous. They are not illegal. But when presented as ancient amber, they become something else entirely. Fabricated history. A piece that should cost a few dollars becomes, in the proper lighting, with the right story, $1,000 fossil, not because of what it is, but because of what people are told it represents. Ranked third, Opalite, a manufactured fantasy with a familiar name. The name suggests rarity. The glow suggests magic. The price, however, tells another story entirely. Opalite is not a gemstone in any scientific or geological sense. It is a commercial glass, often sold under names like sea opal, moonstone opalite, or simply opal. This artificial material is typically a translucent glass infused with subtle bluish or milky white hues and sometimes internal air bubbles, features that mimic the ethereal glow of natural opal or moonstone under certain lighting. For buyers unfamiliar with gemology, the resemblance is convincing. That's precisely what makes it profitable. Opalite is produced industrially without geological formation, mineral classification, or natural origin. Its physical properties, low hardness, uniformity, and lack of crystalline structure, place it firmly outside the category of genuine gemstones. Still, it remains widely sold in the metaphysical and fashion markets, often without mentioning its artificial nature. Its visual appeal lies in play of color mimicry. Opalite can exhibit a soft internal glow under artificial light that shifts subtly with movement. This resemblance to natural opal is surface deep. Under magnification or gemological testing, it becomes immediately apparent that the stone lacks the microscopic silica spheres and structural complexity that define authentic opal. The misunderstanding is not accidental. The marketing around opal intentionally leverages terminology associated with natural opal, exploiting ambiguity in naming and consumer assumptions. In marketplaces, especially online, opal is often listed alongside genuine opals, moonstones, or chalcedonies, creating the illusion of inclusion among authentic gems. For those seeking aesthetic, low-cost materials, opalite serves its purpose. But in the context of gemstone history, it is a textbook case of perceived value unbacked by substance, a material whose beauty is engineered, not discovered. Its popularity endures not because of rarity, but because of how effectively it uses the language and look of something far more valuable. Ranked second, dyed howlite, the fake turquoise. Few deceptive stones in commercial circulation are as deliberately modified and misrepresented as dyed howlite, a naturally white porous barat mineral with distinctive gray veining. Howlite is soft, chemically stable, and readily absorbent. These qualities make it an ideal substrate for artificial coloration, most commonly a vibrant turquoise blue. Once dyed, howlite bears a superficial resemblance to natural turquoise. The color saturation, matrix-like patterns, and cabochon-friendly texture all mimic the characteristics of higher-grade turquoise, which is a hydrated phosphate of copper and aluminum. However, from a mineralogical standpoint, the two are entirely unrelated. Their crystal systems, chemical compositions, and even geological formation environments have no overlap. Dyed howlite is inexpensive to produce and easy to source in large quantities, with significant deposits in California, Nova Scotia, and parts of Mexico. Once processed, it often enters the retail stream under misleading labels: stabilized turquoise, reconstructed turquoise, or simply turquoise, without disclosure of enhancement or substitution. This lack of transparency, especially when accompanied by high markups, constitutes the primary reason why dyed howlite appears on this list. The price difference between genuine and artificial materials is substantial. Untreated turquoise from historic mines in Iran, Nishapur, the American Southwest, or Egypt can command hundreds to thousands of dollars per carat, depending on clarity, matrix pattern, and provenance. In contrast, dyed howlite rarely exceeds a few dollars per piece, even in polished form. Yet when presented without certification or gemological context, the average buyer may see little difference, a gap that sellers often exploit. Detection is straightforward for trained professionals. Under magnification, the dye pools in surface fractures and concentrates around grain boundaries. UV light tests may reveal uneven fluorescence, and hot needle probes can sometimes expose polymer coatings that enhance luster. No central gemological laboratory classifies dyed howlite as turquoise or as a legitimate substitute for it. The issue is not the material itself. Howlite has valid uses in craft and ornamental design when correctly identified. The problem arises when a low-value mineral is chemically altered to resemble a historically and culturally significant gemstone, and sold as such. In that context, it becomes an instrument of misrepresentation. Not through what it is, but through what it is made to appear. Dyed howlite is not turquoise. It was never turquoise, and every attempt to make it seem otherwise widens the distance between appearance and authenticity. In the first place, cubic zirconia, the diamond deceiver. No imitation in modern gem history has achieved the reach, the polish, and the persistent illusion of cubic zirconia. Engineered in laboratories during the 1970s as an affordable diamond simulant, this synthetic crystal quickly moved from research-grade optics into global jewelry markets. And once there, it did something rare. It blurred the line between what people wanted and what they were buying. Cubic zirconia, composed of zirconium dioxide stabilized with yttrium or calcium, shares no chemical relationship with diamond. Yet optically it mimics brilliance with surprising precision. Its high dispersion, 0.058, produces colorful flashes that seem more vibrant to the untrained eye than a diamond's restrained sparkle. It ranks 8 to 8.5 on the Mohs scale, softer than diamond but sufficient for occasional wear, and can be cut in any shape or size with perfect clarity. No inclusions, fluorescence, or ethical controversy. But the price tells the truth. A 1-carat diamond may cost $5,000 or more. The exact size in CZ'd, factory-made and flawless, is worth less than $10 at wholesale. And yet, in millions of cases around the world, from low-cost engagement rings to mass-market fashion accessories, that price gap disappears behind polished settings, retail markup, and suggestive phrasing like diamond alternative, synthetic brilliance, or indistinguishable to the eye. Cubic zirconia does not deceive by itself. It doesn't need to. The language and context surrounding it mislead. The velvet box, the spotlight display, and the weighty silence when presented as something meaningful. CZ'd's role in jewelry is not criminal nor illegitimate, but it becomes the most successful counterfeit in consumer gemology when it's sold or gifted under the assumption of diamond-grade value, without disclosure. Major certification bodies do not treat CZ's as a gemstone. It has no grading system, resale market, or appreciation potential. It is stable, abundant, and manufactured by the ton. A triumph of industrial efficiency, not geological rarity. However, its impact on the perception of value is profound. Countless customers have unknowingly celebrated life's most important milestones with stones without lasting worth. Cubic zirconia didn't just look like a diamond. It replaced one, quietly, convincingly, and often permanently. Some of these stones were sold in good faith. Others were pushed by clever marketing or willful silence. But the illusion was the same. Beauty was mistaken for value. Ultimately, a gemstone is not defined by how much it shines or closely resembles another gemstone. It is defined by what it truly is, geologically, historically, and commercially. And even the most ordinary materials can take on a false brilliance when that truth is blurred. These weren't just stones that lacked value. They were lessons about perception, assumption, and the cost of not knowing the difference. In the comments, let us know which one resonates with you, and don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this.